Who do you think would win in a fight, Johnny Cage or Scorpion?
Dude, I don't know. Oh, this is a tough one. Oh, I can't even imagine. I can't even envision a situation in which these two combatants would fight. Oh, that's just too out there. That is, wow.
So, Torvald, hey, what movie are we talking about today?
Dude, only one of my favorite movies of all time. Probably my favorite martial arts movie of all time, like almost hands down. It's got to be 1995 epic masterpiece video game movie, Mortal Kombat.
That was my favorite movie for a long, long time growing up.
It's so iconic, like the characters. And don't get me wrong, I know they're pulling from the video games, which are, just as iconic. But like seeing them on the big screen as a kid, whoa, it was mind blowing.
And we lived in a small town that didn't have a theater. And I remember we actually drove all the way up to go to the theater to see it for my birthday. It was so great. It was like the best birthday ever.
What a birthday present. That's amazing. Man. Scorpion, in this movie, he has, I kid you not, exactly 5 minutes of screen time.
Yep.
That's all. And yet he makes such an impact. Man. What an icon. He's so cool, dude.
Dude, no. I mean, he's like Boba Fett, Like he just needs to stand there for a couple of seconds and everyone loves him.
Maybe the less screen time was like better. Maybe that made him even cooler. I don't know. No, I agree. I think Mortal Kombat properties are actually kind of leaning even more towards the Scorpion Sub-Zero
that's what everyone
mentality,
liked.
Which is good. Yeah, that's what everyone wants.
I mean, like, I got nothing against Liu Kang, but like, come on.
I like all the Mortal Kombat characters, even the newer characters like Aaron Black, right? Like the old school characters, Sub-Zero, Scorpion.
Well, and speaking
so cool.
of old school, in 1995, when this came out for Halloween, I dressed up as Scorpion and you dressed up as Sub-Zero.
And I dressed up as Sub-Zero.
Our mom totally made us the costumes. They were amazing.
Dude.
We kept those around forever.
So first, let's give you guys a primer, what it's about, who it includes. It was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, one of our favorite directors.
He's our favorite.
He did Event Horizon, the Resident Evil franchise,
Death Race.
The games and the property was created by Ed Boon, John Tobias. So the movie, I guess, was written by someone named Kevin Droney, who I'd never really heard of, but I looked him up. And you know what else he wrote?
What?
He wrote Mortal Kombat, The Journey Begins.
What? Oh, dude. We loved that as kids, too.
Dude. I mean,
even as kids, I think we kind of loved that one, ironically.
the miniature animated spin-off accompaniment to the Mortal Kombat movie. Mortal Kombat, The Journey Begins. It was basically an extended trailer, or trying to sell stuff.
It gives you a lot of fun backstory, and it had some interesting CG graphics, which even at the time
is the right word.
That good.
They were never good. No, like those graphics were appalling, but still cool. So Johnny Cage in that movie, for some reason, is wearing like spiked wristbands, like metal spiked wristbands, which doesn't really fit his character. Liu Kang does not have those. And yet both of them can block Baraka blades with their wrists. I don't know. It's like...
Yeah. Also, every single male character in that...
is shirtless.
Well, not only shirtless, but have the exact same body. Like, they just have different heads.
Dude, how many times can Johnny Cage... like hold up his fists and crouch down and back away from a bunch of Tarkatan warriors? Wow, that's like the best animation ever. Okay, you know what else he wrote though? Kevin Droney, the writer of Mortal Kombat, he wrote Highlander.
Yeah, dude, Highlander is great. One of the most interesting things that I find about the casting of this movie is that like this movie was so successful. Like it was really successful when it released.
Rightfully so.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It does not have a single big star in it. Like Christopher Lambert is the biggest star in it.
And he's arguably at that time a big star.
Sure. Yeah, he had been in
our
Highlander.
Dad was super psyched to see him in that movie.
Yeah, I love Christopher Lambert. But what's interesting is that so Lyndon Ashby plays Johnny Cage. Johnny Cage, whose signature move is to do the splits and punch, and is clearly based on Jean-Claude Van Damme, right?
Right, yeah.
they had actually offered the role to Jean-Claude Van Damme, but he decided to do Street Fighter instead, which I just find it interesting that Street Fighter came out around the same time, was loaded with stars, and just absolutely bombed.
Yeah.
Whereas this
it
had no
bombed.
stars whatsoever and was just like an amazing success.
Well, it might have been so successful because maybe it was cheaper than Street Fighter. I don't know.
I don't know. They spent a lot of money on this movie.
It turns out that Lyndon Ashby, I guess, wasn't even the second, person to
Right.
fill
It was
this
offered
role.
to
I
a
guess.
lot of people, like even Tom Cruise or something. So,
Oh, that would have been interesting.
yeah. And also, apparently, Tom Cruise tried to stop by the set when they were shooting Mortal Kombat because he was like a big fan or something. And
yeah?
their guy in charge of security was like so committed to his job that even knowing who Tom Cruise was, he wouldn't let him on the set because he wasn't supposed to be there.
Dude, the dedication of that bodyguard rings true throughout this entire movie.
So,
Okay, wait. So it's also got Robin Show. That was Liu Kang.
Right,
You
yeah.
might know him as Gobei from Beverly Hills
Right.
Ninja. Amazing actor, amazing martial artist. I only wish he was in more because I really like him. I think he's good.
yeah.
We mentioned Christopher Lambert from Highlander. He was Raiden in Mortal Kombat.
And interestingly enough, that role was originally offered to Sean Connery.
Oh, who was also from Highlander.
Yeah. And they thought
would've been
like
interesting.
to them, it was actually like a cool reversal when they cast Christopher Lambert because they're like, he's usually the student, but now he's the master teaching the new fighters.
It turned out good, though. I think he was a really good Raiden.
Amazing
except for the fact
Raiden.
that,
Except that-
I mean, excellent, but he
Yeah.
wasn't Asian. And he
You're right.
probably should have been
He's
Asian.
so white, so white.
Yep.
And that
His
is
hair
one of
was
the
even
main
white.
criticisms of this movie is that, Raiden. But like, even from the original game, they have always pronounced Raiden wrong, right? It should be Raiden. But it
Yep.
like, no matter what, this is kind of a, Americanized character.
Well, yeah, I mean, whatever. I'm glad that we got a good actor who gave an amazing performance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess he probably should have been Asian. We also had Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa,
Yeah.
who,
a
the
legend.
amazing, the legend, Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa, who played Shang Tsung, just knocked it out of the park. What a
Amazing
performance. Oh my goodness. He reprised
just
the role
so
for the DLC of Mortal
know.
Kombat 11.
Like, I don't even
it
buy
was so
fighting
good.
games anymore in general.
Dude.
And the fact that he was in it, I was like, oh gosh, I think I'm going to have to buy this game just so I can get
It's-
that DLC.
It's even better than you expect.
Yeah.
He just knocks the role out of the park. He makes
He
it his
owns
own.
that role.
Chris Casamassa as Scorpion and
Right.
Francois Petit as Sub-Zero.
Right. And I've heard that Francois Petit was the highest ranked martial artist on set.
Dude,
He was actually very involved in a lot of the stuff, like a lot of the planning of, I think, the stunts and fight scenes. And so that's actually one of the reasons why Sub-Zero doesn't get too much screen time is because he was often behind the camera
he
managing
gets a
other
lot
stuff.
more than Scorpion. Though.
Yeah, he gets more than Scorpion. That's true.
Of all the bad guys, Sub-Zero gets the most besides Shang Tsung.
Well, Goro gets a lot.
No, I mean, usually he's off camera saying, roar.
That's a good part.
Yeah. No, but I mean, now it makes sense why Shang Tsung paraded Sub-Zero out in front of everyone to ruin their meal. He was such a good martial artist. They had to show him off.
The producer also says that the guy he freezes and breaks, that guy was also like an amazing martial artist, and he didn't really get to show off very much, unfortunately.
No, he just said,
But like, dude,
Whee.
like as a kid, I remember that guy being like total wimp because of his voice is wimpy, but like that guy's ripped. That
He
guy's
is, yeah.
insane.
He cracks his spine just by stretching.
I know,
Which isn't
but
that
like,
impressive.
you just listen
but
to his
it's
voice,
something.
you remember as being that foyer guy who gets frozen. Like,
All right. What's the story of Mortal Kombat? Just in case you've never seen it or never heard of it. The story of Mortal Kombat, the movie, pretty closely follows the story of Mortal Kombat, the game, like the original one.
yeah, this was a very faithful adaptation.
Basically, 3 fighters are chosen by Raiden, the god of thunder, to represent Earthrealm. And they're gathered by Shang Tsung, who represents Outworld, which is basically another dimension full of evil people, right? And
Right.
they're going to represent Earthrealm in a tournament pitting these 2 domains against each other. If Outworld wins, they can invade Earthrealm and kill everyone. all you basically need to know is there's a tournament and the good guys have to win.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's a pretty simple movie. It's mostly just really cool and fun to watch.
Before we get into my theory, I just want to be clear. I know and understand the backstory of Hanzo Hasashi, who is Scorpion, and Bihan, who is Sub-Zero, and Kuai Liang, who is the second Sub-Zero. I know their backstory, and I know it has nothing to do with Johnny Cage. The theory that I'm about to present is only relevant for the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie, not for the games. Here's my theory. Johnny Cage, he was a huge actor. He's adored and in some areas reviled, but either way, he's known across the globe. He's a role model to a lot of people like Art Lian, the man who he meets at the docks in Hong Kong. And one of these people who knows him and adores him might have been Scorpion.
I will say we don't ever meet anyone in this movie who is starstruck with him, though. Right? Like even Art Lean is kind of just like, don't worry about it, man. You know, like,
it's true. I would say maybe the director,
right,
who was yelling for him to come back.
Fun fact: that director was going to be played by Steven Spielberg, who also apparently likes Mortal Kombat, but there were scheduling issues and he couldn't do it. So they cast a guy who they made look a lot like Steven Spielberg.
He did look like Steven Spielberg. Okay. Lots of people loved and idolized Johnny Cage, or at least knew of him. Now, one of these people may have been Scorpion. And Scorpion, at some point, sought out his idol's autograph. He got an autograph on a photo. He kept it as a keepsake, a reminder that, you know, he aspired to follow in Johnny's footsteps in training, fighting, being the best, right? So when Scorpion later found out that he was going to fight his idol, Johnny Cage, in the Mortal Kombat tournament, of course, he took his precious autographed photo with him. And when he lost and exploded, that photograph flew out of his clothes and landed in a pile of viscera. And we, the audience, all get to see that Scorpion was, in fact, a super fan of Johnny Cage. Not just a super fan, Johnny's greatest fan.
So the theory is that Scorpion was a great fan of Johnny Cage. And I think that that's a bit of a stretch, but I can't wait to hear you prove it.
I can prove it. All right. Some people have looked at this scene where that photograph falls in, Scorpion's remains, and they say that Johnny threw it at Scorpion's body parts as like a mocking gesture, kind of like making fun of him after the fight.
Well, it's supposed to be an Easter egg, like a callback to the fact that one of his friendship moves in the second game, I think, was that he would sign an autograph and give it to the other person. Right. Well, do we want to get this out of the way at the very beginning, since you're talking about it? I mean, because we got to look past this. Is that the producer of the film, Lawrence Kasanoff, has said, and other people actually involved with the film have said, that is what this was, that it was supposed to be a joke, like Johnny Cage signed an autograph and dropped it there and left, which was never how I interpreted that scene. In fact, It wasn't until I think you mentioned it that I even thought that. As a kid, I always thought, because there's viscera explode, like his hand, like everything is just exploding in random of Scorpion. I always assumed that photo flew out of Scorpion, and as a kid, I was like, "Wow, that's really cool." Like Scorpion must have known he was going to fight Johnny Cage, and he went out as a spy. Well, in my mind, I thought he was like, because he's a ninja, he must have like spied on him and like maybe got close to him to learn his moves, and like maybe even got like a autograph from him to like study him before his fight.
What a master.
I thought that was really cool. Because of course I love Scorpion.
Right. So I'm going to say screw whatever the film crew says. I don't think that could work for it to be like a mean, sarcastic move by Johnny, and I will explain why. But first, it's important to note that this is a reference from Mortal Kombat 2. Johnny Cage's friendship, it's technically a fatality, but it's a friendship. It was to sign a photo to my best fan, Cage. But it's important to note that across all of the entire Mortal Kombat universe, friendships are always friendly.
Yeah, it's a way to spare your enemy instead of kill them.
They're literally the winner doing something extremely kind or friendly or just putting on a show for the loser, which is the opposite of what the series is known for, right? The series is known for blood and gore and death and killing. Friendships never include death. They never follow a fatality. The loser is never hurt in any way, except for, I think, in Mortal Kombat trilogy, Scorpion and Sub-Zero's friendship was to use a jack-in-the-box to scare away their opponent. But they didn't hurt them, right? So yeah. Now, in this movie, Johnny slices Scorpion to pieces and explodes him. If this was done in a game, it would be a fatality. So this was not a friendship.
Yeah.
Like, he's not the kind of guy who kicks someone while they're down, instead being the kind of guy who gets kicked while he's down through the entire movie, right? Especially in the scene where Scorpion is kicking him over and over while he's down.
Johnny Cage's signature move is punching someone in the crotch. So, I mean, he's known for fighting dirty.
I'm not saying he wouldn't fight dirty, but like, let's look at the other people in the movie. Of everyone in this movie, Johnny is the most human main character. He's not an aggressive, avenging psychopath like Sonya Blade, right? Like, pulling out her gun and shoving it in people's faces all the time. He's not a revenge-seeking zealot like Liu Kang, right? Like, he's literally just there because he's a guy who wants to prove he's a good fighter. I don't think he has it in him to, like, after this fight, as his opponent's body parts are plastered around the arena, to snidely take out a photo, sign it, and throw it at his opponent's guts.
I mean, I do think that Johnny is a bit of a showboat, obviously, and I think that he's not above mocking someone. But if that person is already dead and no one's watching, I don't think he would do it when he's like in a weird hell dimension. Like, how did he even get out of there?
I don't know.
He's got bigger things to worry about, man. Scorpion is filled with lava. Johnny needs to get out of there, man. Like, there'd be lava on the floor.
Furthermore, Johnny could not have had the photo. He couldn't have had it on him. It was a decent sized photo, right? Like, it's at least the size of like a grown man's hand. It's in pristine condition. There's not a fold or a wrinkle or a crease on this photo. This is a photo that was treasured by its owner, and Johnny has no possible way of concealing such a photo on his person. Unlike Scorpion, whose outfit would easily allow him to slip the photo safely and securely, like under his big old belt or inside the outer yellow layer of his outfit, or even under the black skin-tight layer.
Right.
Johnny's wearing a button-down shirt and trousers. He's got no place to hold a photo like this.
Yeah, and Lawrence Kasanoff even concedes that point, is that he's like, yeah, it's just a silly joke. Like, it doesn't make any sense because where would Johnny have that photo, right? Like, no, there's no place he could carry it where it wouldn't be folded, you know?
So, at the beginning of the movie, first time we're introduced to Johnny, we can tell that Johnny's big. He's not just big, like, he's absolutely huge. He's got the kind of star power that allows him to literally just ditch the set while filming the last scene of the movie, leave the director groveling for him to come back, and it doesn't even faze him.
Right.
We got newspapers in China writing about him. You know, whether it's good or bad is debatable, but Art Lean recognizes him. He's big, right? Johnny is definitely big enough that wherever Scorpion is, he could have heard of Johnny.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Scorpion and Sub-Zero, they are fighting for Outworld, but they are from Earth, right? They're
I can at least say pretty conclusively, in the video game universe, Scorpion's clan, the Shirai Ryu, and Sub-Zero's clan, the Lin Kuei, are both on Earth. Like, they are Earthlings. They're humans. They're not from Outworld.
Right. They're not Tarkatan warriors or from the subterranean realm of Shokan or something like that.
So something I just want to note, this doesn't have anything to do with the theory, but I was always sad watching the movie, but also like impressed at how powerful Shang Tsung must be. Because like when Johnny walks off the set, you know, he meets his old master, but it turns out to be Shang Tsung. And this means that, you know, since Shang Tsung can become him, it means that he beat Johnny's old master, which is kind of sad. But also, like, he must be so powerful to beat Johnny's old master.
Or, this was the theory I was trying to work on, but there's no evidence to support it. It means that Shang Tsung was Johnny's master.
Oh no, it was him all along.
Like, he beat Master Boyd a long time ago, and he trained Johnny.
Whoa. I mean, he certainly was good at impersonating Master Boyd.
Now, wait, when he goes up to Master Boyd, so Master Boyd is reading a tabloid newspaper that is called the National Examiner, which is a clear parody of the National Enquirer. On the back of that magazine, there is a horoscope, and one of the creatures on the horoscope is Scorpio. Perhaps this is foreshadowing that he will fight Scorpion.
Whoa, dude, you've done your research.
It's right across from Johnny Cage's
pretty good.
picture on the other side.
No, I mean, of course, definitely. Like, why else would they put that in that scene? They definitely, it's not a real magazine. They made it, right?
Yeah. One of the other cool headlines I like on the National Examiner is at the very top, it says, amazing, 98.4% of all products made in Ohio.
Wow, all of them. Ohio, the manufacturing mega center of the world.
Right. And then, of course, the main headline is about Johnny Cage being a fake.
Right. This is how Johnny ends up entering the tournament. His old master convinces him to, and it turns out that it was Shang Tsung in disguise. Liu Kang enters the tournament because he had a vision where his brother got murdered by Shang Tsung, and it turned out that it was true. So he enters for revenge.
Well, and of course, Liu Kang feels guilty about this because he was supposed to be training to be the chosen one, and he left, and so they started training his brother instead to be the one to fight Shang Tsung, and that's why his brother died.
Yeah. And Sonya Blade, she's in it for similar reasons. Basically, she feels like she got her old partner, killed by Kano, the man she's hunting. Where's Kano? So she sees Kano enter this tournament, and she's like, all right, I'm going to join him, and sneaks onto the boat. Now, I just want to call attention to how amazing this movie is. It's so tight. Like, we're 15 minutes in.
They establish all three main
every
characters
character's introduced.
very quickly.
They all have motivations. We care about them.
They
and
all
they're
have
already
arcs.
on the boat to the island. They wasted no time.
No, they did a good job. I will say about the soundtrack, that was one of the last things they did was the soundtrack for this film, and they kept trying lots of different musics and none of them fit, and finally they decided on this one that we got. And
dude,
it was
techno fits really well.
It was so successful. It went like platinum within 2 weeks of the movie's release, the soundtrack or something like that.
It's an amazing soundtrack.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, that Mortal Kombat.
I know, like, man, I was actually, as I watched this movie, I was like, I want to get that sample, like that guy yelling, and just use it as everything. Like my phone, my ringtone, my SMS alert.
Okay, so
as a kid, I completely like understood the Liu Kang plot, like what's going on here, but it didn't quite dawn on me that like he had escaped from an awful cult that lives in like the rubble of an old temple and wears identical clothes and worships some old white dude and routinely sends kids into death matches like for the good of the world. Like I never grasped that. I always kind of took it as like he left the old ways behind and became a city slicker, moving to America, right? Like it was, but watching it again, I'm like, he escaped a cult. Like,
the white god that they worship does exist.
He's an actual god, yeah.
He doesn't seem to be particularly all powerful, but
why didn't you save my brother? Why didn't you? I love that answer because I was like, well, what are you going to say to that, Liu Kang?
Yeah,
why didn't you?
So Kano, I mean, many people know this.
I don't know what I think about you, but Kano, such a good actor. Just perfect. He is the perfect Kano. He's so good.
I love Kano. No, he was so good that the creators of Mortal Kombat retconned Kano's character, who he was originally Japanese American. That's why his name is Kano. And they were like, he's Australian now.
He became Australian.
He became that guy.
Right. Well, in every subsequent Mortal Kombat game, especially Mortal Kombat 11, if you watch it, the man playing Kano is purposefully channeling the actor from the movie. Like he's trying so hard to be him. He does a good job.
All right.
Well, okay. So they're at the pier. Sonya, she's a maniac. Like she just tackles Johnny. She's just going around tackling dudes, shoving guns in their faces and yelling at them, asking where Kano is. Johnny doesn't even know who Kano is. Like, but boy, does he take it in stride. Like he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm sure I can help you find him. Like, he doesn't even think twice. Like, what a star. and right after that, why is Liu Kang antagonizing Johnny? He's like, gives him a fake smile and says, just another starstruck fan, huh? Like, why? This man just had a gun in his face.
What that means, though, is that when Liu Kang threw his luggage into the ocean, he knew exactly who Johnny Cage was and how big of a star he was.
Well, I was going to point that out. This proves that everyone here recognizes Johnny and did so instantly.
Possibly not Sonya.
Maybe Sonya didn't, you're right. But it's not a stretch to say everyone else recognizes him. Scorpion would have also recognized him. And if Scorpion likes fighting and being a fighter, understood that Johnny Cage can actually fight, maybe he would have, become his fan, right?
Yeah.
So right after that, Shang Tsung pops out, and Sonya is not even surprised that Shang Tsung, the owner of this random boat she snuck onto, knows her by name.
Right.
He comes out and says, Sonya Blade. And she's just like, where's Kano?
Yeah.
I'm like, why? I would be a little more surprised in this situation. And then Johnny comes to her rescue and is like, hey, be nice to the lady. She's just doing her job.
Yeah, she doesn't need
Shang
backup,
Tsung isn't
she
being
could radio
mean.
for it.
2, she doesn't need backup. She could radio for it. And 3, how do you know this maniac with a gun is doing her job at all? She didn't introduce anything to imply that she's doing her job.
She did not show him a badge or anything. So
then Scorpion and Sub-Zero enter.
Whoa, I love
really,
that scene.
really good.
Well, the music starts up and they just open the door and just
might.
like glide into the room.
No, it's very good. This whole time, Scorpion's pupilless eyes are locked on Johnny Cage from the instant the door opens.
Yeah, he's definitely very focused on Johnny when he comes in.
He's targeting Johnny. He knows who he wants to go for, right? And this shows that, none of them were really assigned people to fight yet, presumably. So Scorpion wanted to fight his idol. Why not, right?
I guess. Okay.
So they didn't get to fight right there. Raiden comes in and stops them. And
Raiden says, your sideshow freaks attacked my fighters. They didn't.
Yeah, they didn't. I mean, he did, if you think of that snake in his hand as a weapon, he did brandish a weapon.
Right, but so was Sonya. She brandished the weapon first. She points the gun right at Sub-Zero.
I know. And then Sub-Zero just disarms her instead of hurting her.
Yeah.
So they get to the tournament.
They have a banquet. Sub-Zero freezes a guy. They follow after Shang Tsung. They're
right. They eavesdrop on them. I just want to mention, after they eavesdrop on these guys, and Shang Tsung is like, "We are not alone," and then points at them. They're running away. Then they try to follow Kitana. Right. I just love, always will, love the scene where all of a sudden they're all following Johnny. And Johnny says, I know exactly where we're going. Kitana went this way.
I mean, even as a kid, everything Johnny says is just hilarious.
Hallway just filled with pure spider webs.
Shouldn't go that way.
Obviously, nobody has gone that way for at least several decades.
But the thing is, it's like Johnny clearly knows that too. He must be doing this just for the dumb joke of it, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, he says he can smell her perfume, but Liu Kang can't.
That's also clearly a dumb joke. And then right before that one, they just see randomly Goro's shadow wandering around. He says to Sonya, hey, you go in there, find out what that was.
No, I mean, Lyndon Ashby, he honestly has good comedic timing. He delivers his lines very well. But I love also that this hallway of spiderwebs that no one has ever used apparently in the history of this building also leads directly back to the hall that Goro was just in, that they were running away from. It's very good. The comedy is very tight in that scene.
Let's just quickly talk about that scene though when Kano is talking to Goro. First of all, Goro is just an amazing puppet. I mean, they had several versions of this puppet, but man, he's amazing. And they would just do him CG now, but actually having Kano interacting with this real thing, that is pretty menacing.
Sticking its face in Kano's face and just
that thing is crazy, man. And they spent so much time on that.
I love how Kano is talking to Goro. And he knows that he's talking to Goro, and he's seen Goro. And then Goro stands up, and Kano looks at him as if he has never seen him before in his life. He is so shocked and terrified by this giant evil creature. And you gotta admit, Goro's freaking imposing.
And what's interesting is that in this movie, they tried to sort of give more personality to characters who didn't necessarily at that time have a lot of personality. And one thing they tried to do with Goro was that he was supposed to be very pompous and actually have a slight rivalry with Shang Tsung because, of course, Shang Tsung lost the tournament 500 years before. And the only reason they've won 9 tournaments is because Shang Tsung went went
brought in
and got
Goro.
Goro, and he's like
Right.
their champion now. So he's the reigning champion, and I kind of do think you can detect sort of this hidden enmity between Shang Tsung and Goro whenever they speak.
Who do you think would win in a fight, Goro or Shang Tsung? Because I gotta go with Goro, like hands down. Like,
Yeah, I
four
kinda
hands
think
down
Goro
to be exact.
would win.
No, Goro would rip Shang Tsung apart. What does Shang Tsung have to defend against Goro?
I mean, we're talking about movie Shang Tsung. Like, of course, in the video games,
Yeah.
Shang Tsung can turn into Goro. So
Right, yes. All right.
So Liu Kang fights the Lion Man.
Right, yeah. Then so the matches start, right? They actually start fighting in the tournament, and Liu Kang fights some random lion man who wasn't even in the games. Why did they add this guy? Like,
Yeah, that's a little
they
odd.
could have picked anyone. They could have picked I don't know, Ermac or something.
I mean, I think possibly it might have been a budgetary constraint because a lot of the other characters require costumes and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, and everyone has a power. Everyone in this movie has a power. This man's power is that he can roar.
Right.
That's all.
And that's
It's a
something
very
that
cheap
required
power.
no special effects. Exactly. Well, and I do know that all of Shang Tsung's like sort of ninja soldiers were originally going to be Tarkatan warriors like Baraka, but they didn't go with that idea. And I think it was probably budgetary to like, you have to attach blades to every single one of these people's arms. Yeah.
Don't you think that Shang Tsung sucking this living man's soul out and calling it a fatality was kind of cheap? Like,
right.
Shang Tsung, what are you doing?
So the guy was
this
beaten.
Was your
and
own fatality.
When someone was beaten, you can't do a fatality. He knew,
but Liu
Kang wasn't going to. So he's just like, I'll do one. If you're crazy enough to criticize this movie, which why would you criticize it? One of the criticisms that people said was like, well, you know, it's not bloody enough. It's not rated R. It should be rated R. And I'm like,
it's
dude,
for kids.
Right, but I'm like, dude, man, like kids were the ones playing Mortal Kombat, even though it was very bloody. Who's your target audience? Like, this was our entire childhood comprised in like one movie, you know? Like,
yeah, and we never in a million years would have seen it if it was rated R.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, we wanted to see Highlander so bad, but it was rated R. And we would have loved Highlander. Oh my goodness, we would have loved Highlander.
We would have loved
and like,
Highlander.
That movie, it would. Well, I mean, they do chop off people's heads, but like, how hard would you could have made that PG-13? Like, and we would have just loved it anyway. So, but what was interesting was that the producer says that his reasoning for why like that fatality right there wasn't bloody was he was like, in the world of video games, bloody violence was really new and original and something that hadn't really been seen before Mortal Kombat. But in the world of film, it had been done a lot because this was made in 1995, which of course was right after the 80s, where gore was like the new big thing. And he was like, if we went really gory with this would be just like Friday the 13th. And like they had seen so much gore that they wanted to try to be more creative. And I'm sure someone did tell them make it PG-13, but like the producer himself was just saying like, we wanted to find more creative ways to be just as brutal as the games, but not gory. And I will say that as a kid, like the deaths in this movie did seem very brutal to me. Like this seemed like a pretty hardcore movie, even though it's never gory, right?
It has no gore. Yeah. There's zero gore in it. And I think that putting limitations on yourself sometimes leads to greatness, right? Like forcing yourself to not choose the easy way of like, it's brutal, so it's gory, right? Like, but finding a way to show the brutality without using the gore, that can lead to bringing out the best in a movie. And
right.
Certainly did.
And I think the first time we see blood in this movie is at the very end when Shang Tsung.
When his lip bleeds. Yeah. His lip bleeds. It was the only blood in the whole movie. And he was so surprised to see it.
And he was impaled on spikes.
In a PG-13 movie. I mean, just to go along with this, the very next fight, Sonya versus Kano, that's a brutal fight.
Yeah,
like
man.
Everything about it is just oozing like brutality.
There's a
like,
really,
he walks
really
up to her
big
with a
man.
gigantic knife. He's huge. He's imposing on her on purpose.
She is so tiny compared to him, and he's just like punching her in the face.
And then she freaking breaks his neck as he begs for his life. And like, breaking someone's neck on camera is hard to do in a movie that's not rated R, but they do it by just showing her while it happens.
Right.
But it's just as effective as if you could see him.
And as a
maybe
kid, I
even
remember
more.
that seeming pretty brutal to me.
It is.
So this is a good point to talk about just some like alternate scenes. One deleted scene that didn't even get filmed, right? Like it was just a planned scene, was that one of Shang Tsung's bodyguards was going to be Jade, a fan favorite combatant from Mortal Kombat. And she was going to fight Sonya Blade. And how it's described in the script or whatever is that they walk up to each other, Jade bows, and as she's bowing, Sonya Blade kicks her in the head and breaks her neck, and that's the entire fight.
Oh no, that would have been so anticlimactic
that
and
would
great.
also like ruin Sonya's character. Like while someone is bowing, like she breaks Kano's neck after he's being a huge jerk. But like,
dude, she's American. She doesn't bow on courtesy. She doesn't wait to break people's neck.
So I think, good for them for not doing that scene.
So now we're getting to the real meat of this movie. This is the big Johnny Cage versus Scorpion fight. And I would say arguably the fight of the movie. Like this is the main event in my opinion.
Well, to me, I think the two greatest, like in terms of just how impressive they are, the two greatest fights of this movie are the Scorpion fight and the Reptile fight. Like those two fights are just insane really in how they're choreographed. And what's interesting is that those two scenes that are the best fight scenes in the movies were actually choreographed by Robin Shaw.
Oh, well, Robin Shaw is a great choreographer. These two scenes in particular like set themselves apart from the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Like they feel different.
There's such like fast-paced, like brutal fights. Like I mean,
right.
Scorpion is insane.
They're nonstop.
And Reptile's fight is insane. Like the things they do, and they're also both of them are really short. And like yet those two scenes are like a universe unto themselves, right? Like as a kid, like those scenes took a long time, right? Like that was like me just watching the whole movie was like those two scenes.
And just setting the tone in the Scorpion scene of like Johnny walking alone in this symmetrical forest.
How did he get there?
Oh, like what's he even doing here? Everyone else is on the beach doing their fights. Scorpion is waiting for Johnny in this strange forest.
But yeah, like I mean, I went through this fight so many times as a kid, and I'm just like, man, like up until the point where Scorpion takes him to the other world and Johnny Cage like gets maybe one hit against him, this is like flawless victory for Scorpion. Like Johnny can't even touch this guy.
Right. Well, he does murder his snake by having it crash into a tree, which I hope those snakes grow back. Like poor Scorpion, he might have just been like handicapped for life.
And while he is played by Chris Casamassa, he is voiced by Ed Boon,
as he always was in the games.
Yeah,
Ed Boon is Scorpion's voice.
He recorded some new lines for this one, like "Get down here" and "Welcome."
Here, I'm gonna go through these. So first he says, "Get over here," and then they fight for a while, and then he pops out a snake and says, "Come here." And then Johnny is really lucky that Scorpion runs out of rope.
Let me guess. Your argument is going to be, if you were the biggest fan of a star and you saw him, you'd be like, "Hey, get over here."
You'd say, "Get over here, come here." And then Scorpion takes him home. Like he takes Johnny into his own home. Like,
and he is very welcoming
here. And he says, "Welcome." Right? Like he wants to show off his house to his idol.
True. Few of the combatants are this nice and accommodating.
And then he just starts kicking the absolute crap out of Johnny. Like really just kicking and kicking him.
He just murderizes him.
And then when Johnny like starts to leave, he says, "Get down here." And why did Johnny go up there? What was he thinking? That was a bad place to be. Anyway, the fight culminates with them both on the ground. Scorpion rips off his face to show the skull. He's gonna do his big fire-breathing attack. The fight ends with Johnny Cage grabbing like a spiked shield and just chopping Scorpion to bits. Chops Scorpion's head in half. Scorpion explodes. Body parts fly everywhere. And then landing in the exact same spot as a large amount of Scorpion's body parts is a pristine signed photo of Johnny Cage to my greatest fan. Scorpion kept it on him all this time. It meant the world to him.
Right. And that is definitely what I always thought.
I don't really see any way of proving that Johnny Cage had the photo and dropped it there. It just doesn't make any sense. He couldn't have had it and he wouldn't have done it.
Totally. So. And like I said, the producer even said this was a joke and we weren't sure if we were going to keep it. Like, where would Johnny have this? But he's cocky and arrogant and it's funny and it worked and we kept it. Then he said, "We're really proud of that fight and we think it's the best thing in this movie."
It is. They're right. It's such a good fight.
regardless of whether Scorpion had it or Johnny dropped it, the text confirms that Scorpion is his greatest fan, right?
That's what it says.
And Johnny wouldn't lie.
No, he wouldn't lie. He's a very truthful man.
I will say in this fight, so like you were saying, like Scorpion is absolutely wasting Johnny Cage. Johnny gets like maybe 2 hits in on him, right? And then
it's really sad because as soon as Scorpion takes off his face, he becomes like completely vulnerable.
That's what I was going to say
murdered.
next. Is Scorpion's fatal flaw is that he turns into an animatronic skull man who can't dodge or fight,
who can't move. Yeah.
And if he had just thought that one through, Scorpion would have won. I love Scorpion.
Well, but
so much.
maybe his real fatal flaw was that he just couldn't bear to murder his idol.
Exactly. Like me,
he was frozen with, the fear of what he would become.
He's from Japan, and in Japan they have a word for this. I forget what it is exactly, but you have your outside face and your inside face. You have the outside face that you show to the world, and the inside face was just your real, true, vulnerable self. And so he's showing his most vulnerable self to Johnny, the person who he loves, and he's just bearing his full self to him. And then, of course, that's why he loses. He couldn't do it. He couldn't beat Johnny. I mean, this is a bit of a stretch.
No, this is completely true what you're saying.
Well, I mean, maybe it was like Scorpion was like, I am just beating the absolute crap out of this guy. Like, I really need to give him a break. I'll give him a little handicap, okay? I'll stand still. I won't move. I'll just breathe fire at him. That'll give him like a fighting chance, right?
It sure did. Wow.
Wait. He's not even sacrificing himself here. He's like, I'm going to give Johnny the win, right? Because Scorpion knows he can come back. He's already dead.
Right, he's already dead.
He's a specter. He'll just come back again, man.
He always comes back. I mean, Scorpion has no reason to fear death. He lives in hell. Like, he'll be back.
But also, like, dude, how did Johnny get out of there? Like, where even is that place? He got teleported there. Like, how did he get out of there, man?
And this is evidence that Scorpion maybe helped Johnny get back. Because who can get out of hell? Only Scorpion, right? Like, he's the only one who can willfully teleport there and back. So he must have brought Johnny back afterwards.
I guess, yeah.
He was his biggest fan.
I mean, there's no other explanation. There's a door that just leads out? No, like Scorpion, someone who can teleport had to have teleported him back.
So as far as my theory goes, that's about it for my evidence, unfortunately, because that's the end of Scorpion. That was his full 5 minutes of screen time. But we can keep talking about the rest of the movie. The next fight, Sub-Zero. I feel like this fight was, in my opinion, one of the biggest ripoffs of the movie because I'm a pretty big Sub-Zero fan.
Scorpion was my guy and Sub-Zero was yours back in the day.
I mean, I like them both. I'm not a weirdo, but no, I really like Sub-Zero in the games, in this movie. And like his big thing in this fight is that he's so stupid that he thinks he can just make like a growing dome of cold around him,
right? And
just like kind of watches Liu Kang swing around a bucket of water a few times, right, and then throw it at him.
And also, there are few bad guys in this film who are built up so much as Sub-Zero. Like they really built him up. Like he breaks that guy at the banquet. Like why else is that there but to show like this guy is insane, and so you're expecting a really good fight, and then Liu Kang. I mean, I guess he is so powerful that Liu Kang can only win through trickery, but.
Right. Well, and I was going to say, like, geez, Raiden and Kitana are just cheating the crap out of this tournament, right? Like, Kitana used her whole fight to help her opponent and basically tell him how to beat Sub-Zero. And then Raiden put the water there.
The producer even acknowledges that. He's like, yeah, this is kind of cheating. But like, I think Raiden probably rationalized this as like, they might want to drink.
He certainly took a drink after putting the water down.
But like, how little faith did Raiden and Kitana have in Liu Kang that neither one thought he could beat Sub-Zero, right?
Well, I mean, he couldn't have, though. Like, honestly, if he hadn't had water, what's he gonna do? Sub-Zero just became an ever-expanding dome of freezingness. Like, it was a pretty good attack if Liu Kang hadn't had water. But I really like Sub-Zero's stance. I love that, like, he's not a really tall guy, but also his stance puts him at half the height of Robin's show. So after the Sub-Zero fight, there's a big montage where Goro kills everyone.
I always liked Artleen, even though he's not in the movie very much. Like, he just comes off as a nice, friendly guy. So I kind of think they did a good job, despite the fact that he has next to no screen time. You kind of feel for the guy, and you even feel like he's friends with him, even though they like basically never talk to him.
Arlene, he's Williams from Enter the Dragon.
I know, yeah, he totally is. We'll talk about Enter the Dragon in a minute.
He's the nice, charismatic guy who gets killed to make you feel bad and make you hate the bad guys. That's his job. So yeah, Goro's really, laying it thick on them, how powerful he is, and Raiden has to give them a motivational speech about punching him in the balls. And Johnny then goes and makes a deal with Shang Tsung that I guess the deal is I, Johnny, get to challenge a specific fighter, and then you, Shang Tsung, get to challenge a specific fighter.
So we got to talk about the Goro fight with Johnny, though.
Yeah, okay,
so,
dude.
Like,
this is a really good fight. It's one of my favorite fights in the movie, even though it's a smaller fight. I just love how much they built up Goro. We know he's huge. Like, he's a big, big, mean fighter who's won like 9 tournaments in a row. And Johnny just absolutely mops the floor with him. Gets 100% a flawless victory against freaking Goro. And in the games, in the Mortal Kombat games, there's always like the pre-ending fight where you fight some big monster, and then the actual ending fight where you fight the main bad guy. And the pre-ending fight with the big monster is always a million times harder than the actual ending fight.
Right. Any attack from Goro can be a fatality.
Any attack is a fatality, according to Mortal Kombat: The Journey Begins. If you want to beat Goro in Mortal Kombat 1, you pretty much have to flawless victory him. Like, it's crazy how hard he is. At least last time I played it.
When you were a little kid.
Maybe I was kind of young. But no, I mean, Johnny Cage destroys Goro. Goro doesn't even get a hit on him. And there's no acknowledgement from Shang Tsung. No announcement of a flawless victory. After he called Goro's fight against Art a flawless victory, when it clearly wasn't. Art was punching him all over. I was so mad. I was like, geez, give Johnny his due. He beat the 2 toughest fighters in the entire movie.
Yeah. And I do know that they were going to have a bigger fight between Johnny and Goro, but like puppet was just very hard for them to actually do fights with. So,
dude, don't you just love the poetic justice that you learn only if you watched Mortal Kombat: The Journey Begins?
Dude, I was just going to talk about this.
Goro, he fought his brother, because they were arguing over tribute for their dad.
Genius. It's genius. They are paying off a backstory that no one even knew about, but they're doing it intentionally.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that video didn't release until after the movie came out in theaters, right? Like that was to go along with like the VHS release.
What we're referencing is it's an animated video called Mortal Kombat: The Journey Begins. It's weird. Half of the video is like cartoon animation, like 2D, and the other half is like interspersed throughout the video are these 3D fight scenes. It's kind of odd, since at that point the Mortal Kombat games weren't 3D.
Yeah.
But one of the 3D fight scenes is a fight between Goro and his older brother. Goro's older brother wants to give tribute to their dad, and Goro wants to give the same tribute to their dad.
Right.
And so they fight over this tribute, and Goro ends up dangling off of a cliff.
Goro's older brother went and got the tribute. And then Goro saw was like, hey, that'd be a cool thing to give my dad. I'll fight you for it.
Right. Goro's brother is just like a stand-up dude who's like, totally entertaining his brother's
Too bad Goro's
stupidness.
brother forgot that his society hates stand-up dudes.
Right, exactly. So yeah, Goro's dangling from a cliffside, and his brother decides to be nice and helps him up because Goro's like, just save me, I'll let you have the tribute. And he's like, oh, okay, great. I can get my brother and make my dad happy. Win-win. No. Goro immediately grabs his brother and flings him off the cliff. So now his brother's dangling by just one hand. And he says, Goro, please save me. You can have the tribute. And Goro says, no, and stomps on his foot, and his brother falls. And
takes the tribute
the story
first.
of how Goro's brother died. So Johnny Cage beating Goro in exactly the manner in which he murdered his brother it's genius. Poetic justice.
It's genius. They're paying off a backstory that they knew about
that didn't exist.
Right. Yeah. But what commitment they really were committed to really the backstory of their characters and the mythology of Mortal Kombat in this.
Yeah. But don't you think that maybe they wrote the Goro and his brother story based on the movie?
No, man. These guys were genius. Pure genius. Well, I mean, it was the same screenwriter. You said it yourself. I'm sure he had written backstories.
But he probably wrote the movie, and then he was thinking about it. He's like, hey, I could have Goro do something like that before. That would be a good callback, right?
Yeah. Okay. So it's sort of a retroactive payoff.
Either way, it's genius.
But what's also great about that scene is that it is also an amazing payoff and end to Johnny Cage's arc. What started as a joke of "this is where you fall down" is his most badass moment in the entire movie.
Yep.
This is where you fall down.
Oh, it's so good. And we cannot let this fight slide by us without commending Goro's voice actor's performance when he snatches Johnny Cage's sunglasses. He laughs about them, crushes them, and then he's
as a kid,
I
always tried to imitate that laugh and then that perfect after, and I just can't get it right. Like the voice actor just does it so perfectly.
Amazing fight. It brings Johnny's entire character to a head. Like you said, that it finishes his arc in just the perfect way.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think he has one of the better arcs in the movie, right? Like
totally.
He wanted to prove that he is a great martial artist. He's a freaking great martial artist.
Johnny is actually the true champion of Mortal Kombat. Like,
I agree. I was gonna ask you about this, but I agree.
He beat the reigning champion, Goro. He's the one who won. Like sure, Shang Tsung can decide to fight if he wants to, but Shang Tsung didn't have to. Like, that could have been the end of the tournament.
Right. Shang Tsung didn't want to fight. And yeah, if he'd beaten Johnny, if Goro won, then that would have been it.
It's great that Johnny Cage's arc is just like that. He has to... Like, he thinks he has such a smart, cool plan. His plan is literally punch the guy in the crotch and run away. What an awesome...
It's a good plan.
But like, it actually, like, I'm laughing.
Show me in the rule book where it says you can't punch your opponent's balls.
But like, it's funny and it's kind of a joke, but at the same time, it actually is a really genius way of showing his arc. Like, his whole thing was to show I'm the greatest fighter ever. Like, he's showboating. He's all about the image. What does he have to do to win? He has to be a little weasel, right? Like, he's gotta punch the guy in the crotch and just run away. That final fight with Goro isn't in front of an audience. No one knows that it happened. And like you said, no one commends him for it. And he doesn't mind.
No, he got the real recognition he needed was from within.
Yeah.
He just needed to know that he was the best.
I love Johnny.
Oh, Johnny. But yeah, Shang Tsung decides that he wants to fight Sonya. He takes her into Outworld. Liu Kang and Johnny follow. And Liu Kang ends up fighting Reptile. Now, like you said, this fight is amazing.
It's insane.
It's noteworthy because, like, I've never seen a fight like that in this movie. Rarely even outside of this movie. It's so fast paced. Like, It's so nonstop. Like, Reptile is just tearing into Liu Kang from the instant he bursts out of that statue. Right? I mean, the statue becomes him.
Yeah, and I want to say just a little bit about the brutality of the fight sequences. So I forgot to mention this in the Scorpion fight, Johnny Cage, like the actor who played him, Lyndon Ashby, actually got like punched in the kidney and was like peeing blood afterward. And the producer said he was like just eating painkillers like Skittles for a while after that because he was in so much pain from that. Like, he was actually getting the crap beaten out of him in that fight. And then in the Reptile fight, like, Liu Kang broke 3 ribs when he gets like slammed into a wall, and he just like got up and he was like, said to the actor who was playing Reptile, he said, okay, because he was also choreographing the scene, he was like, okay, we're gonna keep going, just don't hit me on this side. And so Reptile had to hit him on the other side for the rest of that sequence, and then he probably went to the hospital.
The difference here, though, is that Liu Kang, he came from like old school Hong Kong, like, Chinese filmmakers, and I mean, those guys are tough as nails.
Right. Well, and that was actually another bit of trivia from the Scorpion fight scene is when Scorpion does that flip down, Liu Kang's crew, which were a bunch of old school like fight coordinators from Hong Kong, were just like, whoa, like, the American filmmakers put like a pad down for him to land on. Like, in Hong Kong, if we get the shot, we don't care what happens after the person lands.
I love how Reptile starts out at this just insanely rapid tempo.
Yeah.
And you get the feeling through the fight that his
like
strategy,
the music
like it goes
too.
with the music, yeah. But his strategy is to be so fast and brutal that he will murder his opponent as quick as possible. But he just doesn't have the energy to continue it.
Right.
And Liu Kang's got the endurance and slowly gets the upper hand over Reptile because he's not running out of energy. And Reptile, he's all tired by the end.
Like, I mean,
and then
kudos
Liu Kang
to
starts
Reptile.
to
He
beat
didn't
him.
expect to be absorbed by a weird gargoyle.
No, he came out swinging. No, but I like the pageantry of that fight. I like the story they tell.
And the actor does an amazing job of just like fighting in a very animalistic, like snake-like way.
Yeah, it's a good scene.
And another reason the Reptile fight is great is because they managed to perfectly adapt an aspect from the game that Reptile is a surprise character, despite the fact that Reptile's in this whole film, so he can't be a surprise. But the way he becomes a fighter is just like out of nowhere. It's so surprising,
right? It's like
that it was just the perfect adaptation of how he shows up in the game. Even though, of course, in the game,
I gotta wonder, like, so there were a lot of those weird demon statues. Would they all do that if you pressed yourself up against their chest?
I don't know, because some of them had little creatures inside them. I don't really understand those. So we got to say, though, Robin Show's hair is just glorious, right?
It's amazing.
His hair is
Dude, his
insane.
hair in this movie.
And in Beverly Hills Ninja. Like, his hair was just magnificent.
No, Robin Show is a man with great hair. So Reptile fight's over. It's time for the fight with Shang Tsung. It's not the greatest fight, but Shang Tsung saves it just by being such a good actor and delivering his lines like a maniac.
Yeah.
He's really good.
You can't run from me, Shang. I don't need to run. Which was in the trailers, but I don't think in the movies.
I mean, I remember the line, but yeah, I don't think it's
in the movie.
So I did like the part where they're having kind of this, like, he's talking to his dead brother, and his dead brother's like, I don't know, trying to convince him to join him. And his responses are like making knives come out of the ground. I don't quite get what's going on, but I like it. I think it's sinister.
The choreography isn't as intense as some of the other fights, but it is a very good end to Liu Kang's arc.
Yeah, it wraps up his arc very well. It's sinister. It really feels, the stakes are high. It feels like someone's going to die here. And then someone does die, right? Like Shang Tsung gets impaled on his own spikes. So it's a good end. And then that good end is followed by the greatest end when Liu Kang says, let's go home.
Let's go home.
And then they go home. And then, dude, they get home and they're all happy and everyone's celebrating. And
yeah, they're like, so you expected us to win or something? It's like, didn't have a clue. You humans are so unpredictable.
And then Shao Kahn bursts out of the temple, and he's huge. He's like a skyscraper. And
how are you
going to
fight him in Mortal Kombat? You can't do anything.
Pathetic fools! I've come for your souls.
What's Johnny gonna do? Punch him in the balls?
Nothing. They're not going to do anything, and yet they're so ready to fight him. All of them. It's just immediate fighter poses. And Raiden, I don't think so. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do. They are so lucky he becomes just a regular actor for the sequel. But no, it's such a good ending. They're so ready to fight this monster. Like, there's not a doubt in their eyes.
Oh, man.
They're unwavering.
Yeah, we got this.
So about my theory about Scorpion. You might buy it, you might not. As far as I'm concerned, there's no possible way for Johnny to have had that photo. There's no reason for him to have signed it and dropped it on the entrails of his opponent. It just doesn't make any sense. That photo has to have been in Scorpion's clothes. So Scorpion must have been Johnny's greatest fan, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Now, why does this matter? Like, why do I care if you believe it? Dude, this makes Scorpion's character so much more human, right? Like, it gives him like an almost endearing superfan side, right? And ambitions beyond just like revenge. It makes his fight with Johnny Cage both fulfilling and heart-wrenching, because, it makes Johnny Cage's not knowing that he just beheaded his greatest fan a tragedy. But also,
I'm getting Ajax vibes here.
it takes one of the greatest movies ever made and adds an entire hidden but fully fleshed subplot and emotional arc for Scorpion, the guy who never had any emotions except for anger, right?
I would say it is about as fully fleshed as Scorpion was when he died.
No, because now he gets to come face to face with his idol, and that's how he dies.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like it. Like I said, I always, I was a little disappointed when people said Johnny Cage just dropped that photo. I was like, what? And especially when like the producer confirmed it, I was like, no, it was supposed to be that Scorpion had it. Like that adds more depth to his character. So I do like it.
That's all I wanted to hear.
Do we want to talk about Enter the Dragon?
We can't get around the fact that some heretics have claimed that this movie is nothing but a third-rate ripoff of Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon.
Well, our dad, after we watched Mortal Kombat, he told us about Enter the Dragon. This is a pre-internet age, right? So he wasn't looking up fan theories or anything. Like he recognized it immediately. He was like, yeah, this movie takes a lot of inspiration from Enter the Dragon. And then he showed us Enter the Dragon, which I'm like, why would you show your kids Enter the Dragon? That's like...
Yeah, I mean, it's not the goriest movie, but it's not for kids.
It's not for kids, though. Like, people are getting their necks broken left and right. Like, Bruce Lee is just constantly killing people.
Well, and when they kill Williams, I think it's just
and that part never
like,
sat well with me as a kid.
Nice.
Like, after we watched, like, Dad showed it to us, like, that part haunted me a little, where it's just like, oh, you just killed off this, like, really likable, cool character.
Right,
and then,
he's a cool
like, but, like, in a really brutal way.
Him.
Like, and you drop his body into, like, the ocean or whatever.
Well, like, and he dies, like, and all these girls are just like laughing as he dies. It's like really sad.
Yeah. It's an interesting film, but it is very different from Mortal Kombat. There are certainly similarities, right?
What are the similarities? Evil guy holding a tournament on his own personal island. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that was all literally taken like word for word from Mortal Kombat the game. Like, I mean, if anything ripped off Enter the Dragon, it was Mortal Kombat the game, because read the manual for the original game. It says the evil Shang Tsung is holding a tournament on his island.
There are certainly some similarities with the characters of Williams and Art Lean, and how they are kind of both killed off to tug at your heartstrings, and how the main white character, who is Roper in Enter the Dragon, is named, played by John Saxon, who is the dad in Nightmare on Elm Street. He kind of makes friends with Williams on the docks, which of course is what Johnny Cage does with Art Lean on the docks.
That's true.
There's the similarity of Goro being this huge big guy who can beat anyone, and the main bad guy Han has like this big buff guy who looks like really someone else's head was transplanted onto his body.
Yeah, I agree. Like when I first saw him, I was like, is that CGI?
Head, and then he takes off his shirt and you're just like, oh, whoa, this guy is massive. And the fact that like they kind of build him up like no one can beat him, and you think, oh, maybe Bruce Lee's gonna fight him, but then randomly Roper, John Saxon, fights him and wins, and he wins by playing a little dirty, by biting his leg.
Well, and he definitely doesn't flawless victory him like Johnny Cage did.
Roper is an interesting character. He mainly just seems to like losing money.
I mean, I think his thing is that he likes scams, right? Like,
yeah.
So him and Williams, their scamming the fight was like obvious.
Well, it was so obvious, but also
they were not good at it.
I haven't watched a lot of Bruce Lee movies, but like I really liked Roper and Williams. Like this could have been a buddy film about them. Like Bruce Lee is always just so mean, and he's constantly murdering people that it's hard for me to root for him, even though I know he's on the right side. But to his credit, Bruce Lee in this movie never accepts one of the prostitutes, or that, I mean, that's putting it nicely. They're sex slaves.
Right, yeah.
Whereas Roper and Williams both kind of accept these sex slaves without batting an eye. And maybe they don't know they're sex slaves. Maybe they think they're prostitutes. But even that is, kind of makes me not like their characters very much. But they are fun characters, and they have these little bets going.
Yeah.
Okay, so the one big thing of just like the lead choreographer from Mortal Kombat, his name is Pat E. Johnson. He was an actor in Enter the Dragon, and also I think helped with some of the stunts, though he wasn't credited for that.
Oh, that's cool.
Probably, if there are some similarities, it might come from the fact that their choreographer, and much of Mortal Kombat was choreography, had worked on Enter the Dragon. But then also the producer Lawrence Kasanoff said that when he was pitching this idea around, he was pitching it as Star Wars meets Enter the Dragon.
Oh, well.
Which is exactly what this film is, right?
That's kind of what it is, kind of.
I mean, it's got the big, like, kind of over the top feel of Star Wars, tons of mythology, a lot of the kind of melodrama, the really over the top bad guy. And then it's also got a lot of similar plot points and maybe even characters and fights to Enter the Dragon. And so, but it's certainly not a ripoff. I don't know if anyone's ever seriously claiming that. Both are great movies, and Mortal Kombat is a great movie that certainly took some inspiration from Enter the Dragon.
I think we can agree on that. All right. Well, thanks for listening. This has been The Popcorn Isn't Real with me, Torvald, my brother, Leif Eric.
Hey.
I just want to remind you that we always put a link to the movie in the description, so make sure you click that link, watch the movie. It's an amazing movie. I guarantee you won't regret it.
Music for this episode was provided by Christine. If you like our podcast, you can always review, or subscribe on whatever platform you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Popcorn Isn't Real. No apostrophe, just at Popcorn Isn't Real.
All right. See you guys later.
Bye.